Good morning, everyone. Just want to welcome everybody to this morning's webinar. What we're going to be covering here this morning, we have 14 tools and features that are kind of commonly overlooked or things that not everybody knows about. Some of these tools are things that we typically get a lot of calls in support on and kind of think to myself, wow, I'm surprised that more people aren't aware that you can do this or that, that sort of thing. Some of these are some newer tools that maybe not everybody is aware of and just doesn't have the time to learn some of these things. So like I said, we got 14 tools and features here that we're going to cover this morning. Not all of them will be fully in depth. Might not have enough time to cover all of them in depth, but we'll at least give you a brief overview of some of these so you have an idea of what they do and the power that they can bring you. So my first tool that I want to cover is going to be changing member types. So basically what this is going to allow me to do is I can change any member from one type to another. So for example, say I want to change a beam to a horizontal brace. I can do that. I'm going to just demonstrate that here with this example. We can see I have two beams, these two here that are framing skewed to another beam. I can go ahead and change those to horizontal braces, so I actually get gusset plates designed there rather than the shear plates like I'm getting. So to do that, I can select my members, and then under my model pull down, I'll go to member and change type. I then pick the new member type that I want to change to. In this case, I'm going to pick horizontal brace. And notice my piece marks change there. If I process and create solids, I'm going to get a piece marking warning there. Now I have some failed connections, but if I edit these, notice up at the top now it calls this out as a horizontal brace edit window. And just for our sake here, I'm going to drop these tension loads down here. And now you can see I get gusset plates designed there rather than the shear plates that I was getting before. So easily, quickly change a member from one type to another. This is very useful if you're importing models. A lot of times when you're importing models, those files that you're importing from will call out members as beams when they needed to be treated in SDS2 as horizontal braces, or sometimes they're brought in as beams and need to be treated as vertical braces. You could change it to a vertical brace as well. So like I said, very handy after you import a model and some members are not the correct type that you need. So that's our first tool. That was change member type. The next thing I want to show you is displaying dimensions in the model. So there's a couple different ways I can display dimensions in the model. The first way is just the show dimensions command. So under my model pull down, I have show dimensions. And this is going to actually work for members. This is going to work for submaterial and group members. And these items must be detailed before you can use this on them. It references that detail and uses information from that to display that. So once I selected show dimensions, I could go ahead and pick my members, and I could pick multiples here if I want. I'm just going to do that one beam, hit OK, and notice my dimensions are showing up there in the model for me then. Just going to go ahead and snap to the web of this beam so we can see it more straight on. Now one of the things you're going to notice is you're going to notice some text is green, some is yellow, like our overall dimension up here is yellow. The reason for that is if I take a look at the detail for this, basically it's indicating to us in the model that the dimension label on the detail is something that can't be interpreted just as a number or just as a dimension. So our main dimension has some extra information other than just the dimension up there. So it's indicating to us in yellow in the model that it can't interpret that as just a dimension. The other thing we could see happen let's say I come in here and I'm going to modify my dimension label in here. Maybe I'm going to change that from 3 to 3 1/4. So I did that on both ends actually. Let's say I go ahead and save that. And then I'm going to go back into the model and I'm going to reload these dimensions. So again, model, show dimensions, select my member. It's going to reload that. Notice my 3 over here turned red. Okay. When you see the red text like that or red dimensions like that, just indicates to me that the detail does not match the drawing, or excuse me, the detail does not match the model. Okay. Again, like I said, we could do this with group members. So if I wanted to show dimensions for this group member up here, I can do that as well. Again, it just takes information from the group detail. To get rid of those, pretty simple. Go to my model pull down, clear dimensions, clears all the dimensions. I can also turn on some options in display options. So if I go to display options, I have 3 checkboxes there for material dimensions, member dimensions, group member dimensions. When I turn those on, what's going to happen is anytime I hover over one of those items with my mouse in the model, it's going to display those dimensions. As soon as I hover over another one, it clears the previous ones and shows me the new ones. Okay, like I said, I can also do that with submaterials. So if I just hover my angle there, it gives me those dimensions there as well. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off in display options. Okay. Now, the other thing you could do is you could actually use reference drawings to display more than just the dimensioning. So if I open my reference drawing tools, and I'm going to go ahead and click Add, one of the options I have in here to add reference drawings is details. So if I want to add and overlay the detail of B_12, I can select that. Notice where my work point is. I'm going to have to actually locate that, and I'm going to use vertex point to locate that so I get it lined up right there with the corner of my material. And now I see more information. I see my labels on there. I'm actually seeing the text from that main dimension from the detail. I could get weld symbols. I could get pointers, hole symbols, anything on the detail should show up in the model. Like I said, I should be able to do that with group members as well. So again, go to details, my GM96 here, and I could overlay that right here, pick my vertex point for that. Now notice I'm seeing some weld symbols from that. These are just out of the box details. I didn't clean them up or no nothing. So maybe you could use that in conjunction with the show dimensions also. So at the same time, I could go to my model pull down, click show dimensions, and maybe for this B_12, I'm going to show dimensions. Now I can easily see the red dimension that would be displayed by show dimensions. I can see quickly what it was actually changed to on the detail to kind of see the discrepancy there for me right here in the model. You can easily turn those on and off with the reference drawing tools in here. Just uncheck that show checkbox. And other nice thing is if I were to actually erase these reference drawings and then I add them back in, so that was again for B_12, it actually remembers where I placed it previously and I don't have to locate that where I want that overlaid again. So kind of nice there. So just a couple items for displaying dimensions in the model. The next thing that I want to cover is material add existing. We get lots of phone calls in support, lots of questions all the time of I have these certain plates in the model. How do I add them over here real quickly and real easily? Well, there's a tool for that. So under my material add, I have an option to for material add existing. Now this does not mean that you're adding material that already exists in the field or it's already built in this building or previously. What this means is it's going to allow you to pick a piece mark to add to the model that already exists in the model. So that could include also things like your standard piece marks from setup, from like your plate definition schedule or your shear plate standard piece marks. You could also easily add those things using material add existing. So just as an example here, let's say over here on my stair, I want to add some connections to that beam. If I look at an angle over here that already exists in the model, this particular one is an A3, and that's from my clip angle configurations, the standard piece marks. So just real quick, I'm going to come over here. I'm going to use material add, construction line add material to get construction lines in there quick, and then I'll pick my material add existing, pick the member I want it added to, locate my points, and now I have all my materials that exist currently in this model to add. And I'm going to actually add an A3. Okay, rotate that into place here. And now I quickly created a clip angle that already existed in the model there. Like I said, I can use that with the shear plate standard piece marks also. So just to give you an idea, if I open up the shear plate standard piece marks, I have 3 standard plates in there. I'm going to add this P3 that has 3 rows of bolts on it, and I'm just going to use it to add a shear plate over here to this stair stringer rather than the angle. So again, material add existing, pick my member, locate that, and it was a P3. Just going to do a quick find, P3. Okay, and we can go ahead and rotate that into place here. And there I quickly added that existing plate. The next item that I get a lot of questions on is adding assemblies. How do I add an assembly as its own member? Okay, a lot of times everybody just comes over here and uses the load assembly, or if you go to the model pull down, you have load assembly. What that does is that loads the assembly and allows you to add the assembly as material to another member. So just as an example here, I'm going to snap to the end of this beam. I created a assembly here previously already. So I'm just going to go ahead and add this assembly to the end of this beam. So first off, I'll just demonstrate loading assembly. Like I said, this just adds the assembly as material to the member that I picked. Just like that. Confirm, yes, okay. So if I highlight that member, it highlights all the material attached to it as well. That assembly was part of that member. Okay. Well, I want to add those as clip angles that would be shipped loose rather than attached to that beam. So the way I could do that, if I come over here to my member add tool and do member add miscellaneous, or I'll just hit F2 on my keyboard for the member type prompt, and one of the options in here should be miscellaneous assembly. Okay, that's going to ask me to locate the assembly. So this is actually going to allow me to pick my member line just like I would any other miscellaneous member, pick the assembly I want to add, give it a description. I'll give it a description of clip angles. My member sequence, I'll change my member sequence. Maybe this is in sequence D, and then pick my reference point for that assembly. Confirm the location, yes. Return, and now notice when I highlight that member, it is not highlighting the clip angles. If I do a select other, there's a miscellaneous member right there. Careful with this assembly. In this particular case, I saved the holes and bolts. the bolts with that assembly, and now I have bolts going through that beam material without holes, so just something to be aware of and watch out for there. So you can add assemblies as miscellaneous members, as we saw there. The next tool or feature that I want to cover, this one actually kind of covers several features, and the one I want to show you is under your edit pull down, we have different search and change options that we can use in here. So just looking at the search options, okay, search options will search the entire model and give me a list of members that meet the different search options in here. So for example, if I want to search for members with failed connections, I can hit that. SDS2 is going to bring me up a list of members with that. I could edit from right here. So if I wanted to double click on one of those right in that list, it's going to bring up that edit window. I could make changes in here as I needed. So easy way to quickly find members that meet the criteria. Some of the other ones that might be helpful in here, braces with different thickness gussets. So one of the requests we get all the time is to have SDS2 design gussets on each end of the brace with the same thickness. Well, right now we don't necessarily automatically do this, but the search option will give you a quick way to find all the braces that have different thickness gussets on the left end versus the right end, or vice versa. So again, I could quickly double click one of these here. I could edit that, and easy way to change that is to I could take a look at my revise and review buttons to determine what the thickness of each plate actually is. So this one is half on this end, and on the other end the plate thickness is 3/4. So I could come up to my minimum thickness gusset, then set that to the thicker of the two, which in this case would be 3/4. Then when I save that and process, it should get 3/4 inch gusset on both ends of my brace. Okay. The search options are also available through status display. So if I go to status display and I had a priority set up here, under my conditions I have search. I could use that to do, in this particular case, braces with different thickness gussets, show it as red, and give me a color-coded model there then based on that search option. Going to go ahead and turn that off. So that's search options. Under change options, okay, change options allows you to change certain items kind of on a mass scale or by selecting certain members that you want. So you could do things in here like changing user or forced connections back to system connections or vice versa. You can quickly change the loads from input back to auto if you needed to. Same thing with setbacks, end connections, steel grade. Maybe the default steel grade on your project changed. Okay, I don't suggest going into the steel grades tables to move your grades around in there, because that can cause a lot of problems. Maybe you'd use your change options to update kind of on a mass scale. Maybe it's just the channels, and maybe we're going to do A57250 for my beams that are channels. There's 4 of them in this particular job. I can pick those 4. Notice it marked those up top here on my roof for processing. If I edit one of those and show you, we now have the A57250. So just real quickly updated those. One of the other things I'll point out here in, 2 other things I'll point out to you in change options. You can kind of go through the rest on your own. Some of the things that are very handy, user main material to system main material. If you're working with stairs and that stair becomes graphical or user main material, there's no way to change that through the edit window. This is really about the only way, the best way to get stairs updated back to system main materials by using the user main to system main material here. Another one that I find very handy is the set vertical brace work points to half nominal depth of supporting beam. So this comes in handy when importing analysis models from different engineering packages. Most of the time you're going to see your brace work points, like I'm going to show you here with these two braces, where the work points are up to top of steel of beam. That's how they're input in their analysis package, so that's the way they come across into SDS2. Well, I want to update those quickly, and I'm just demonstrating this to you. You know, if you import a model, there could be, 100 braces that you need to do this to. So if I go to my edit pull down, change options, set vertical brace work points to half nominal depth, it's going to just give me a warning. It's going to modify the elevations of the braces. I do want to continue. Okay, so now we can see it updated those back to half nominal depth of our supporting beam real quick like for us. So that can be very handy there. So again, search, change options allow you to find items quickly or change certain items quickly as well. The next feature or tool that I want to show you is saving and loading selection lists. So what saving and loading selection lists allows me to do is I can save a specific selection, could be from the model, could be from a selection list, and then I can use that later to reload the same selection again, either in modeling or in a selection list. So I'm going to actually use my advanced selection, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to select materials. I'm going to select materials that are in erection sequence A and the main material. They are not main material. So when I do that and I hit OK, comes up, notice it selects all the material over here in what would be my sequence A. It's not selecting materials over here because they are not in sequence A. Now, I don't want to use advanced selection every time to get that that selection right there that we have. So what I'll do is under my edit pull down, I can go ahead and hit save selection. And this is you're gonna have to save a file for this. So I'm gonna call this materials sequence A, and it's not necessarily always going to select all materials in sequence A, but what it's doing is it's saving this file with all the material piece marks in it, and that way when I go to load it later, it's going to select all the materials again with those particular piece marks. Okay. And I could save that file anywhere. I just let it go to the default location just to make things easier here. So now, go to my edit pull down, go to load selection, materials sequence A. It's going to ask me if I want to select members or material. I want to do material, and got that same selection up there. Maybe I want to select all the members in sequence A. I'm going to use advanced selection again, and I'm just going to get rid of part of this code. I'm going to tell it up top to select members, and so now it should select members in erection sequence A. It does that. Again, edit pull down, save selection. This one I'm going to call members sequence A. Save that, and now I can come back later and load selection, members sequence A. You want to select members or material, members, loads that up. Again, it's saving the piece marks in that file. When you load it, it just simply selects the same members with those particular piece marks. Where that really comes in handy then is, let's say I come out to my main menu then and I want to run a FabTrol export. Okay, I'll go to export, and I'll call this demo for my folder name. Now, I could go in, I could use my hide options, all that for this particular case. This is kind of a very simple case. But instead, I'm going to hit load over here on the right. I'll grab my list, members sequence A, open, and it goes ahead and selects those members in that list. I could run that. I could also do the same thing. Maybe I want to run now a report maybe I'm going to run the material summary select by detail report. So I'll pick that, hit run. Again, I can just hit load, pick that list, loads up those members real quick, and I can run that report on just those members then quick like easily. Okay. Another thing that's very handy, so I saved my selection for all my materials in sequence 1. That was the first thing I did. A lot of times I get the request of wanting to print gather sheets by sequence. Well, if I split material marks apart by sequence and my gather sheets are loaded with 1 detail per sheet using the sheet name, or excuse me, using the submaterial mark for the sheet name, I could come in here and I did the PDF drawing export, and I can hit load. I can load that materials _ sequence A, and notice it selected those sheets that have that same mark. So again, it's just saving the mark in there, and then it finds it and selects it in whatever list you're in, or if you're in the model. Going to go ahead and cancel that. So that's a quick rundown on the save load selection list. Very handy, very saves a lot of time for you there by having to avoid selecting the same things over and over and over again. You can just save that off and load it up when you need it later. Okay. Next thing we'll talk about is running reports based on your model selection. So a lot of times people want to run reports, but they don't want to select from a list. They want to be able to pick members in the model and have the report run from that. Well, you can do this with nearly any report, and it's very simple. So just first off, to show you here, I'm going to run the default report field bolts for members. And when you do run that, okay, it doesn't even bring you up a selection list. It just comes up, gives you that for the entire job. Well, what if I wanted that for only specific members in my model? I can do that really easily, and again, I can do this with nearly any report. Anybody can do this. So if I go into Design here, that's going to open Report Writer. I'm going to go to Open up top and open that particular report. So that was field bolts for members. All I have to do to change my selection is go to the Selection tab up here, and if I want to be able to use this based on model selection, I want to set Select here to member numbers. I'm going to go to my File, pull down. I'm going to do a Save As so we can differentiate, and I'm going to add by mem number at the end. Okay, so what this does then, if I run that report that I just saved from the main menu again, so I'll select the new one by memnum, run. This time it comes up with a selection list for me. I can pick the members I want to run that on, and then it should only run that report on those members. If I want to run it based on what I had selected in the model, I'm just going to go up here. I'm going to load that selection that I saved earlier. I want to select members. So I'll pre-select the members I want this ran on, and then I go to Reports, run Report Writer Report, go pick my report that I just modified, open, and it should run based on that model selection. Then it's only reporting for the members that I had selected. So pretty easy to modify existing reports to run off your model selection. The next feature that I'll cover that I don't think a lot of people are aware of is, seems like something pretty simple but could be handy. I'm going to go back to where I added the clip angle in the plate to my stair stringer earlier, and I have all these construction lines in the way here now. If you remember, I actually added those, or I got all those construction lines using construction line add material command. Okay. Well, I want to get rid of those for maybe just a certain piece of material. So I'll pick construction line add material again, and if those construction lines were existing that were added by that same command, it will also erase those. So again, construction line add material. The exception to that is if either the construction lines or the material was changed since construction line add material was ran. It kind of breaks a link to them and won't necessarily erase them, but it'll re-add them before you can erase them again. So again, just to show that, I'll hit construction line add material. I pick my stringer, adds those. If I want to erase them, I use that same command, and it gets rid of those. Okay, fairly simple. This also works in Drawing Editor. So let's say I open this B12 detail again. And in here, I have construction line add material as well, so I could pick this clip angle. I got that. I want to erase it again, so again, construction line add material erases that. In addition to that, the other thing that's handy with that is your selection filter also has a material construction lines. So notice I have some additional construction lines like this green one up here. Even if I pick that, this one up top was not added by material add construction line, so it should not be selected. Only the ones added by material add construction lines. So seems like a fairly simple thing, but can be very handy. Now, this kind of gives us a segue into Drawing Editor. So the next feature we'll cover is our drag and drop configuration. So I'm going to go to a little different detail here. Let me get a good one. Okay, this looks like a good one to demonstrate this on. So what the drag and drop configuration is going to do, when I come over here and let's say I drag this dimension, okay, notice how it's snapping to certain points. Okay, it's not snapping here in the middle. It's only snapping to like the end of that. It's snapping to my holes. The reason why it's only snapping to those certain points is under my locate pull down, I have drag and drop configuration. And this allows me to determine what points when I'm dragging those they get snapped to. So let's say, for example, I uncheck exact point. Only vertex point is selected, so as I drag that, it should only snap to vertex points then, which is typically like the edges or the corners of your material. So notice now when I hover my mouse over that hole, that would be an exact point, and it's no longer snapping to that. Notice how my dimension is still over here towards the left. Okay, I bring that over. So allows us to determine where we're snapping to as we're dragging and dropping dimensions. So again, like let's say I did online, that's just going to snap to the closest point to my mouse along a construction line. Change that one more time. Let's say I do exact point now and vertex point. I can do a couple others here, and it's going to snap to some different locations for me then. Now notice it goes back to centers of my hole since I turned on exact point. So drag and drop configuration, that can be very handy. Now the next thing I'll show us here is something to help us load detail sheets. Okay, so currently if I look in here, I don't have any detail sheets created. I do have a sheet outline. So I want to load my detail sheets, but I want to pick the members in the model to determine what gets loaded. So if I go back into my model, again, I'm just going to load my selection up again. So my members selection. I'm going to go to my process pull down, and in here I have auto load details for selected members. So that's going to take the members I have selected in the model, and it's going to run detail sheet auto loading on those. Pick my sheet outline, that D24 by 36. These are some joists. I'm not worried about my joists. And then I get my detail sheet auto loading options, so I can set my different options here. I'm going to change my spacing, and then I'm going to set my piece mark renaming options over here to certain things. So I'm going to do the sheet number, I'm going to do the member type designation second, and then I'm going to change the placement order on sheet to be the third thing there. Say OK, and should go through, and it's loading just the members that I had selected. So now if I go back into Drawing Editor, refresh that detail sheets list, I have 8 detail sheets now with just those members, and should have updated since I used the piece mark renaming options. So good way to get members or details loaded onto sheets based on your member selection. Now, kind of along with that, this is kind of a little different feature, kind of goes hand in hand. But let's say I create a new sheet here, so I'm going to do a save reuse, and I'm going to call this drawing sheet number 9. There's a change marks option in here when I do that, and one of my options is auto. Okay, so if I check on auto, it's going to come up, bring those auto change marks or the piece mark renaming options up for me. It actually remembered what I used last, which is what we see here. So now I want to use those same criteria. I'll say OK. In that one, it wouldn't really change anything because they were already added. But let's say I add a couple details on here manually. Okay, good enough for now. So my piece marks are not updated. Other than doing that through Save Reuse, I can also go to the File pull-down and choose Auto Change Marks and get that same window. Say OK, goes through, renames based on that criteria. I could go ahead and save my drawing then and got those updated. Now, since we're on detail sheets here, another thing that we get questions on quite often that people are not quite aware of is some people wonder, well, how does the bill of material determine the order that these things are listed in there? How does it sort the different items in there? Well, you can you can control that a little bit under your fabricator options if you go into bill of material layout. Okay, in here there's a sorting tab up at the top, and that allows you to sort based on certain criteria. So if I set that to custom, I can set 4 different criteria on how to sort. So right now it's sorting first by piece mark, which if we look over here we can see A44, A45, then it goes to uppercase A, and then it's sorting by length. Okay, so the length, and I set it to descending, so meaning it's going to start with the longest piece first, and then it's going to order that in descending order by the length. So let's say I go ahead and I'm going to set that back to none, and maybe we want to change this to be the total weight. Okay, so weight total. It's not going to update those automatically, so I'm just going to detail the 3 pieces on sheet 9. Detailed members from the main menu, and in this particular case 9B1, B2, and B3. I'll go back and open sheet 9, and we should be able to see now our bill of material is listed a little bit differently. Notice the A44 and 45 are below A3B here, but my weight total is sorted by descending order then. Okay, so gives you control over how things are listed in the bill of material. Now, another thing here that I get questions on fairly often, what if I have a note on a detail sheet already and I want to update that note on all sheets, or I forgot to place a note on a sheet and I need to get that note placed on all my sheets? Well, let's first start off by adding, I'm going to go back to detail sheet 1. Now let's say I needed a label down here in my kind of in my title block here. I'm going to go ahead and add it to sheet 1 first off. And I'm just going to go ahead and locate it down here in there. And Maybe this needs to say, oops, want my caps lock on here. Let's say I need a submitted for approval note with today's date. And today would be 03/11/14. Oops, should have changed my location point. That's okay. So now I got that there. I probably want this to be the lower left. That way if I change this, and I will later on, it's going to start at the left and go and not override anything. So now I want this on all my sheets. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to do a cut with reference point. I'm going to pick my reference point. Now, if I right-click again and I go to Special, I have an option in here to paste to several. Okay, that's going to allow me to pick different sheets that I want this pasted on also. So first thing, I'm going to paste where I want it on this particular drawing. And then it brings up a list of detail sheets that I want to paste it on. I also have additional options over here for prompt for location and confirm edition. I'm just going to pick two sheets. I'm going to leave these options on. And what should happen is SDS2 is going to open sheet 2. I'm going to have to place this, and then it's going to ask me to save the drawing as well. Okay, so opens sheet 2. I'm going to go place it in the same position. Do I want to save it? I'll say yes. Opens sheet 3, same thing. Locate it, save it, yes. I'm back to sheet 1 now. Okay. Or the other thing I could do, I'm going to go to sheet 4. I'm going to do the paste to several again. So special, paste to several, and I'm going to locate it. Now this time I'm going to uncheck prompt for location. That will allow SDS2 to place this in the exact same spot on my other sheets that I have selected here. And I'm going to uncheck confirm edition. That will just go ahead and automatically save it. So say OK. It goes through all of those. I'll save sheet 4. Now if I go to drawing 5, I have the same note in the same place. Okay, and there we go. Now that's paste to several. I could have also done the same thing if I had a job standard detail. So let's say I wanted to add a job standard detail to several. Under my file pull down, I have that option to add standard detail to several. I could also do it with a global standard or a submaterial detail. I'll pick an approval status. This is a similar item here. My work point is a little bit off. That's okay. So I'll go ahead and locate that, and then I can choose all the sheets that I want that added to. Same prompt for location and confirm edition options over there. Goes through each one of those and places it. So obviously it looks a little silly that we have that both places, but for our purposes, that's okay. Okay, so now I placed that detail on a bunch of these sheets, but let's say that changes. Okay, for the job standard detail that I added here, for example, it doesn't have the date filled out. Well, I need certain sheets to be updated with that particular date. I can do that with labels under my edit pull down. I have search and replace, which would search text and replace it on just this drawing, or I can do search and replace in selected drawings. So for detail sheets, let's say I submitted sheets 1 through 5. Okay. Now search for, what do I want to search for? I want to search for the string submitted for approval XX-XX-XX, and I want to replace it with submitted for approval and let's say yesterday's date. Okay, so 03/10/14. Now, I will say before I do this, be extremely cautious when using this, because once it's done, there is no undo button, and it could possibly change things that you don't want it to. So for example, if I just searched for the text string 4 and I was looking for only 4, it would also come in here and change the 4 within my submitted for approval label also. So we just kind of have to use some caution there. Now I'm going to say OK. Tells me it changed 5 items, and right now I'm on drawing 9. I didn't select it to update that. So if I go ahead and open sheet 1, notice we got that updated. Sheet 2 updated, 3, 4, so on and so forth. So quick way to update text on certain drawings. Again, be careful. There's no undo with it. So what gets changed is what gets changed, and you may potentially have to go back and change if you're not careful. So, okay. Finally here, our last features that I'll cover is a few things with detailing erection views. So currently I don't have any erection views detailed yet. I'm just going to go out to the main menu and I'll choose Detail Erection Views. The first thing I want to show you with Detail Erection Views is we can actually detail with a member style of what we call manually. So what this allows us to do is we can actually pick certain members to be in stick. We could pick others to be in wire, others to be in solid if we wanted, any combination of that. So if I do manually, go ahead and hit OK and pick a couple erection views here. Maybe I'll go with my second floor, and I'm going to choose, say, the isometric view here as well. This is going to actually open what we call a manual erection view detailing window, and what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to pick which members I want to be in what form. So maybe over here on this sequence 1, I'll go ahead and pick those members. I can go up to the solids pull down in here and choose the form that I want. There's also a change all options. So maybe I just want those particular members in wire. Notice it updates that for me, and the rest stay in a stick form. Okay. Once I'm done, I hit the next erection view button. That goes, details that view, opens up the next one in here, and again, maybe I only want certain members, maybe just this portion of the building over here. Maybe I don't want some of these, so I'm just kind of doing the this one edge of the building. Maybe I want in wire. Okay, so I got those. Again, I'll go to solids, and maybe instead of wire this time I'll do a solid. Okay, so gives me a little preview. I'm done picking, so it should detail these in a solid form, the rest in a stick form. Go to my next erection view. It's done, so it automatically closes that. And now if I go back into Drawing Editor, I have 2 erection views. I have my ISO, part of it in a solid, the rest in a stick. Second floor is part in wire, part in stick. Along with that, just to give you a little additional here, also with detail erection views, we can use the status display to display certain members in certain colors, or maybe we want to detail an erection view and mask certain members. So I'm going to do a member style of wire. If I set the status display criteria, when I hit OK, it's going to open status display and allow me to set my criteria now. So let's say I want to do this based on my sequences. So I'm going to actually mask most of my sequences. So I'm going to show item as masked when the sequence is not from A to A, so meaning it's going to have to be in sequence A, otherwise it will be masked. Say OK. I'll pick my isometric view, go back to Drawing Editor, reopen the ISO, and there we see most of my building is masked. I'm only seeing the sequence A. That's because of how I set the status display. So use that status display. Like I said, you can mask. You could just change colors for certain items if you wanted to as well. So That concludes the webinar. Like I said, I gave you kind of had some bonuses there. I kind of combined some tools and features into kind of more of a lump thing to give you a little bonus. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to contact your support rep here, either through email or phone. They should be able to answer any questions for you. So thank you, everybody, for attending, and everyone have a good day.